Okay, I think we're good to start now, everybody. So thank you and welcome to the session on digital communication infrastructure. I would just like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Indonesia project on yet another successful Indonesia update, and the Department of Foreign Affairs is very proud to be associated with the update and to benefit from the great discussions that we have each time. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our first speaker. This is Emma Baulch, and she is a senior research fellow at the Creative Industries Faculty of the Queensland University of Technology, and she's a chief investigator of the QUT Digital Media Research Centre. And today, Emma will be talking to us about mobile telephony in Indonesia. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you. Thanks, Ross and Edwin, for inviting me to participate in this event. It's a great opportunity because you asked us to all be like Onno last night. I just had a double latte before, so things might get a bit dramatic. What I'm presenting today is part of a project funded by the ARC that I've been undertaking with two other people, Jerry Watkins from University of Canberra and Ariel Herianto from ANU, looking at mobile phones, mainly everyday uses. So the way I usually work is doing sort of sustained ethnographic research. So what I'm presenting today is a little bit different. I'm going to be talking more about policy and regulation, but nevertheless, it's part of that project. So do I use that thing? Okay. So most people in Indonesia are connected to some kind of telephony, and this only became true less than 10 years ago due to a phenomenon called leapfrogging, which I'm sure you've all heard about, whereby the number of people subscribing to a mobile service began to outstrip those connected to a landline around the first decade of the 21st century. And by comparison, and as you can see from this graph, fixed line has developed quite slowly, and it's even declined in recent years. So today I'm going to be talking about three things in relation to that graph. The first one is regulation. I'm going to talk about the regulatory environment that gives rise to this remarkable change in Indonesia's communicative landscape over the past decade. And the second relates to the failures of telco reform, as evident in the persistence of a yawning digital gap. And thirdly, I'll briefly touch on current directions of research on telco reform. And I'm going to identify some gaps in knowledge, and I want to finish by touching on some areas that I'm curious about and I think are in need of further investigation. So what gives rise to the astounding transformation of Indonesia's communicative landscape over the last decade? We can see from this graph that mobile penetration starts to overtake that of fixed line early in the first decade of the 21st century. And this is around the time that costs associated with connecting to and using mobile networks decreased dramatically, as you can see from these graphs. Additionally, towards the middle of the decade, cheap handsets began to appear on the market. Informal repair and recycle economies began to grow, making buying, maintaining and upgrading altogether more affordable for ordinary people. So I'm sure anyone who's been to Indonesia has seen the roadsides lined with these kiosks, kiosk HP or kiosk ponsel, where you can buy, second-hand phones and credit and so on. And it also made mobile telephony a more visible, audible and influential part of the public culture in the archipelago. Now, pushing the increased availability of cheap handsets and the drop in cost of connecting to and using mobile networks was increased competition among telco providers. This was enabled by a decade of policy reform, including the liberalisation of licensing and the divestiture of state-owned enterprises. So let's now consider some of the background to and the process of that reform. So from 1964 to 1989, under Act Number 5, 1964, two bodies were responsible for infrastructure and services. PN Telekomunikasi, which became Perumtel in 1974, and PT Telkom in 1991, was responsible for local services. ITT, which became Indosat in 1980, was responsible for international services. And network expansion was funded out of direct state budget allocations and largely supported by the Intergovernmental Group on Indonesia. Around 1986, allocations for such expansion began to dry up, and in 1989, Telecommunications Act Number 3 was promulgated, allowing for the first time participation of private operators. Public-private agreements were struck between investors and state-owned enterprises to supply basic telephony services. The internet and paging market was opened entirely to private operators. And there's an interesting story around voice over internet protocol behind this, where because the internet market was open to private operators ended up making quite a lot of money out of VoIP, and Indosat lost out. So the internet and paging, France Cable, Telstra, Cable and Wireless Singapore and Singtel all entered public-private arrangements in Indonesia during this period. Private operators gained concessions to roll out fixed line in 5 designated areas according to quotas. And this scheme largely failed. And by 2005, Telkom had bought back the concessions and remains the dominant player in the fixed line market. And that scheme has been documented in detail by Lee and Findlay in their 2005 article in the Bulletin of Indonesian Economic Studies. If you're interested, you can follow that up. And around this time too, the first 2G GSM licences were issued between 1994 and 1996 in a joint venture scheme between private investors and incumbents, establishing Excelcomindo, Satelindo and Telkomsel. It's also important to note the role of multilateral agencies in these reforms. So after the 1997 crisis, Indonesia was pressured by the IMF to reform telecommunications as part of a recovery package, including annulling Telkom's exclusivity rights in the fixed line sector and relaxing restrictions on investment. In 1998, Indonesia signed a letter of intent to the IMF, committing it to undertake such reforms. And also in 1998, as part of its membership of the World Trade Organization, Indonesia committed to the General Telecommunications Agreement, which stipulates fair competition under the supervision of an independent regulator and fixed network expansion. Now, this is the current law, Telecommunications Act Number 36, which was promulgated in 1999. Two important changes were introduced with this law. First, it did away with the need for private operators to collaborate with state-owned incumbents in basic services for fixed and mobile telephony. And second, it relaxed restrictions on foreign investment. Controversially, a 40% stake in Indosat was sold to Singapore Technologies Telemedia in 2002. Licences were issued to IM3, Mobile 8 Telkom, Lipo Telkom, Bakri Telkom in 2002 and 3. Now, many of those no longer exist. So this deregulation process that I've been describing gave rise to the current state of affairs in mobile telephony, in which 6 providers compete for a market of around 280 million mobile phone users. Telkomsel, the incumbent, is the most dominant player in this market, and together with Indosat and XL, it enjoys around 84. I think that adds up to 84. 84% market share. So to what extent have these reform measures achieved their stated aims? Together, the letter of intent to the IMF and the WTO's General Telecommunications Agreement lay out 3 expectations: open the industry to foreign investment, fixed rollout and fair competition under an independent regulator. If these are the criteria by which the success of Indonesian telco reform are to be measured, then the result, I think, is quite poor. Restrictions on investment have been relaxed, resulting in the controversial sale of a 40% stake in Indosat to Singapore Technologies Telemedia in 2002. Ooredoo, which was formerly Qatar Telecom, acquired STT's stake in June 2008 and raised it to 65% in 2009. Malaysia-based Axiata Groups owns 66% stake in XL. A regulator was established in 2004, but its independence is widely questioned by scholars and industry bodies, among them Latiful Hayat, Rashid Aik and Lim. The regulator sits within the ministry, and the ministry remains responsible for licensing. Fixed line rollout has proceeded slowly and even declined in recent years. I'm not sure why that is, but it could be that it hasn't kept pace with population growth. Maybe Onno can enlighten us on that. So at first glance, it may appear that mobile teledensity nears, as mobile teledensity nears saturation, the need for fixed rollout is less urgent. However, while the gap between those who have and those who do not have access to a telephone is closed, a new divide has appeared, structured around the qualities of HP use and the degrees of connectivity that... Let me explore that in a little more detail now. I've got some percentage figures up here, and I noticed just before that some quite different figures have been thrown around earlier in the day. So reliability of data is an issue. There might be, I predict that there might be some quite variable data around internet penetration, emerging in the course of this workshop. But nevertheless, these are mainly ITU figures. So in academic journal articles in the press, Indonesians' enthusiasm for social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter is frequently cited. So is the fact that 85% of Indonesian internet users access the internet from their mobile phones. Somewhat less prominent is the fact that social media hungry smartphone-equipped Indonesians constitute only about a third, I think, of total mobile users and a quarter of the entire population. So while mobile teledensity is high, internet penetration is low. ITU figures place it at 21%, although I think someone cited a 40% figure just before. 85% of internet users connect using their mobile phone, but smartphone penetration is low at 29%. Additionally, while 3 and 4G licences have been issued, only half of Telkomsel's towers and 1/3 of Indosat's towers are 3G enabled. 3G and 4G make up an estimated 15% of the entire mobile market. Low internet penetration in Indonesia is a reflection of global patterns of inequality, which run largely across north-south lines. ITU figures showing highly unequal distribution of bandwidth and internet penetration rates are something of an indictment of the telco liberalisation agenda. This map shows internet penetration at its highest in the global north and at its lowest in Africa, Asia and South America. Within Southeast Asia, the picture's a bit different, a bit more complicated, with Singapore, Brunei and Malaysia enjoying high rates of penetration, while Indonesia, Myanmar, Laos and Cambodia suffer low rates of penetration. I want to turn now to consider the forms of knowledge available to us to interpret the social, economic and political implications of the vast differences within the telco landscape in qualities of HP use and degrees of connectivity. Let's consider first the matter of ads, not a form of scientific knowledge, but a significant force shaping the public culture. Ads very much inform everyday knowledge about what it means to be digitally networked. As part of the Mobile Indonesians project, I did a study of a corpus of telco ads, and I found that these ads portray a society in which social media and the internet is closely linked to social mobility, and in which voice and SMS is peripheral to social change. That's represents the campaigns of the three main players. This is one of...
Kemana? Oji mandi cari kerja. Oji nggak mau cari kerja, Mak. Oji mau jadi penyanyi. Mandi! Nyanyi melulu. Cari kerja sono. Iya, Mak. Iya. Oke, para gadis, di sini Bang Oji. Kemana?
XL selangkah lebih maju.
That was a really good excuse to play some dangdut that I couldn't pass on. The linking of the internet to social mobility in ads is not surprising. So while fewer in number than consumers of voice and SMS, data consumers generate relatively high revenue for telcos on a per-user basis. It's to be expected that telcos will try and lure people to data use. But what's more surprising is that the same privileging of the internet is inherent to scholarship on the digital in Indonesia. As shown in this graph, the popularisation of mobile telephony in the first decade of the 21st century precipitated enormous growth in internet access. The bottom line shows fixed internet and the top shows total internet. But remember that mobile internet constitutes less than 20% of total mobile phone subscriptions. Over the past 5 years or so, we've gathered quite a lot of baseline data about this segment of mobile phone users by investigating what Indonesians are doing on the internet in ever-increasing numbers. For example, since 2011, at least 3 major independent reports have been produced, all of which include at least some detailed data about what people do on the internet. This is Mas Yanwar's report is one of them, mapping the landscape of the media industry in contemporary Indonesia, at Crossroads, Democratisation and Corporatisation of Media by Marilina Lim, and Profil Pengguna Internet Indonesia by Apji and Puskakom UI. As a result, we have some great data about patterns and qualities of internet use. So this is some of the stuff that we know. 51% of users are women. Most of them are aged 18 to 25. They spend 1 to 3 hours a day accessing the internet. They started engaging with the internet around 2006 to 10. What we know much less about are the mobile telephony practices being forged by the remaining 85% of users who are not connected to the internet. Now, SMS is a good example of an under-researched resource that lies beyond the internet. Since it travels with ease across a diverse device ecology, SMS holds much potential for extending e-governance and e-health. But our knowledge of mobile telephony does not extend to SMS yet. It's limited to its capacity to serve as a doorway onto the internet. Therefore, it skews heavily towards young urban dwellers, largely in the archipelago's west. Now, I want to finish up here, I have 1 minute, I think, by talking briefly about a couple of things that I'm, interested in and I think call for further investigation. So, the Centre of Social Impact Swinburne, in collaboration with Roy Morgan and Telstra, have undertaken this initiative, Measuring Australia's Digital Divide, producing the Digital Inclusion Index 2016. The index registers not only internet access, but also affordability, as well as differing degrees of digital ability. It'd be really useful, I think, to think about developing similar initiatives to gather data about digital inclusion in Indonesia. We need to understand better the social costs of being excluded from the internet, but we also need to understand how we can better harness widely used non-web digital resources, such as SMS, for health, for e-governance, and for public communications in general. Alongside more detailed investigation of diverse digital engagements, more critical studies of policy and infrastructure are also important. In early days of post-99 telco liberalisation, studies of telco policy and infrastructure development formed quite a large part of the body of scholarship on Indonesian mobile telephony. Studies by Latiful Hayat, Ike, Rashid and Lee and Findlay provided quite useful analyses of licensing, regulation and fixed rollout schemes. I have mentioned there the USO fund, which is the Universal Service Obligation Fund, which telcos pay to the government, 0.75% of their revenue, and I think that is something that we should be asking about, how it's going to be used. So I look forward to further discussion about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Next, I'd like to introduce Bapak Onno Purbo. Is a highly respected ICT educator and evangelist. He's got an impressive number of publications, and the most recent of which was written during a month-long stint at the ANU and is now being used by the Ministry of Villages in drafting new policy, so very impressive.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Ros, Pak Budi, all friends from the Indonesia Project. Thank you very much for allowing me to talk in this conference. So I will talk about digital divide. So Pak Januar Nugroho, I will not talk about the fiber optic and stuff like that. Okay, so after spending 1 month at ANU, I published 2 books. One book on the perjuangan menyebarkan internet, the struggle to spreading the internet in Indonesia. This is very much like the talk I will doing today. And the second one is the handbook for providing internet to village. So the second one is very technical, so I give it to Paros.
Thank you.
Thank you. Feel free to share it with others. Okay, digital divide. No, you have to give it back to us after this. So basically, it's a gap. Individual, household, and everything. Socio-economic, demographic categories, different regards of their opportunity to access, use, impact, information, ICT basically. So it's a gap. I will focus on the village sides. Okay. Source of funding for this activity can be obtained from several sources. USO. This has been used by the Cominfo, the Ministry of Communication and Information, Village Fund, the Ministry of Village, and self-finance. So I will talk about these 3, basically. And not the not Bu Sri Mulyani. The finance minister here is Pak Bambang Brojonegoro. He said telecommunication sector must be able to run and accelerate it without having to rely on the national budget. And that's creating problem because it will run by the private sector. Private sector is looking for money. They will not interested to run, build infrastructure in villages. So, okay. So I will work based on this kind of premises. Okay. And also Now, this is the statistics of the internet penetration in Indonesia. 2014 from International Telecommunication Union. This is from the Internet Society. This is Internet Life Statistics, and this is what mentioned by the country authority. The last one, this one is mentioned by ABGI. They said 35%. Actually, in reality, it's about 20%. I believe in this one, actually. The problem is, not the problem first. Why we need to increase the penetration? Based on the World Bank studies, 10% of increase in broadband or 10% increase in internet, there are 2 things, broadband and internet. Internet is lower speed, broadband is higher speed, hopefully. 10% increase on broadband will increase the per capita GDP growth to 1.38. 10% internet increase in penetration, 1.1%. That's why we really interested in increasing the internet penetration. Mind you, we have 20% penetration today. Okay, it's not easy to increase the internet penetration. Okay, this is the condition. 80% of the internet users in Indonesia now using wireless smartphone. Emma mentioned from the total smartphone users, only 20% using internet, right? or how you say it? Something like that. So we have a lot of cellular subscriber, only few access to the internet. Actually, from the whole internet user, 85% using cellular. The Indonesian, okay. So the total cellular subscription in Indonesia, 326 million, much larger than the population, of course. 85% of the population own smartphone, carry smartphone, everything. So this is our speed in Indonesia right now. It's much lower than Australia, don't worry. Okay, now this is our problem. We want to increase the penetration. 46.7% of Indonesian is in rural and village. So if the government not concentrating in rural, forget it. We cannot increase the penetration. Very difficult. And penetrate to rural and village is very difficult. In these provinces, North Kalimantan, West Sulawesi, Maluku, North Maluku, Papua, the whole province, each province, has less than 80 cyber cafe, warnet. Okay, they have little penetration and they have little warnet, so it's difficult to do digital literacy for this community. Out of 80,000 villages, 18,000 villages receive very weak cellular signals. 7,000 villages has no cellular signals. Okay, out of 80,000 villages, 16,000 in the mountain peak and 3,000 in the valley. Mountain and valley representing barrier for wireless, basically. If the earth flat, it's easier for us to deploy the network. Unfortunately, Indonesia is not flat, so it's difficult. The other difficulty, the first difficulty, the second one is the income. Based on the BPS data, the monthly income is about 700,000 rupiah per month, people in villages. And for goods and services, they spend on about 1%. So the internet have to compete with health, toiletries, beauty equipment, textbook, and others. So basically, the people can only afford $1 per month to access the internet. The commercial sector not interested in this kind of money. Okay, so we need to find other technology to fit into $1 per month budget. Okay, it can be done. Don't worry, but it's illegal. Okay. Okay, this is an app in Android, in cellular phone, Android. It's called Open Signals. You can download and you can install it in your handphone and you can see the signals in your surrounding area. So your handphone actually reporting to the apps on the signal they receive from the cellular network. Okay, so this is like an automatic reporting system for the cellular subscriber. So the customer, we can check which operator is the good one, whether there is a signal in this area and so on. Okay, I will compare signal in different islands. This is signal in Sumatra Islands. This is signal in Malaysia and Thailand, Singapore. A very big difference, eh? This is in Java Island. This is Java Island. This is Kalimantan. Okay. See the difference? Okay. This is Sulawesi. This is South Sulawesi. See the difference? Okay. The trick is simple. Okay. I have to show the whole Indonesia before I go back to this dense signals area. Okay. Java seems like good. The South Sulawesi is good. Okay. This is Maluku. This is Papua. See what the difference? Why it is difference? See, simple. Java, South Sulawesi. Why? Because this is where the president comes from. This is where the vice president comes from. Okay. Now, in global world, they are debating on the digital divide and so on. But their divide is different. The Indonesian divide is more access divide. In Australia, in US, in the Western country, it's more than access. It's more knowledge divide and stuff, that kind of stuff. Okay, so internet skill becoming important to get the maximum benefit of the internet. So it's no longer access. Okay, so we are talking about this. Internet skill is operation skill, information navigation skill, social, creative on the mobile screen, and so on. Obama actually proposed no blocking on the internet, no throttling, increased transparency, no paid prioritization. Yeah, that's okay. So you in the West actually go much further than us in Indonesia. We are still struggling in access level. You guys is in different level. We Indonesians have to learn about this level as well, especially this one, internet skill. It means we need to embed the skill into our curriculum. Unfortunately, during Pak SBY cabinet, the Ministry of Education removed ICT from curriculum. It's fun, eh? Okay, that's the situation, so we have to live with that. Okay, now, attempt to bridging the digital divide. So I will tell the story about the government attempt and the community attempt. The government actually has 1.25% of the gross revenue of the operator. They have to allocate for universal service obligation. Okay, this is huge. This is large. This is a lot of money. Okay. While the citizen, the people, the community, they rely heavily on people empowerment and self-finance the network. Okay, the current largest attempt is in Pemalang Regency. They are trying to connect 211 villages to the internet, self-finance among the villages. Okay, and this is still in planning stage. The Ministry of Village using the village fund. The rumor, because I cannot get it in written form, so I said rumor. Yeah, it's not written. If it is written, it's not rumor. Okay? They attempt to connect 1,200 villages by the end of this year. So it's happening. It's actually, I talked to these guys, but they cannot provide me with written form. Sorry. It's not scholarly, I know, but yeah, whatever. Okay, the government attempt. They spent 2 trillion rupiah to fund the rural telecommunication. 2012, 4,000 something smart village by Telkomsel. 2013, they call it PLIC, which is cyber cafe basically, and mobile cyber cafe, they call it mobile PLIC. These are the largest project. Okay, 2016 failed. These programs were deployed with very limited field survey on the needs of citizens, local capacity, and not much empowerment, human resource. See, this is only written. We need to see the fact, the actual thing. It's easy. You can go to Google. Okay, use Google, and the keyword is MPLIC. You will find a lot of good card. Very shiny. This picture actually taken around 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, 2 or 3 years ago, everything is shiny. It works. It serves the purpose. That's it. Okay, using this keyword, simple, around 2013. Okay, now use different picture, different keyword. My keyword is MPLIC. Rusak, something like that. Yeah. Oh, templik di Fatul Sembiring. Ya. Good. 5 minutes, I'm dead. Okay, you find this. So basically, the community attempt, to make it more sustainable, we need to build local expertise, innovate the technology, revenue. This is the innovation. We educate teachers actually to use IT and so on. Use Cogtic Roadshow. This is what we are doing. Okay. The last year we managed to educate about 1,000 teachers. Unfortunately, only last night, When I came back to my room, I checked the server. Our e-learning server is free, around 15,000 students in it, dead. So that's happened only last night. So, but somehow I emailed my friend, and then we trying to set up a new server. Hopefully it works within 1 or 2 weeks. Okay, and then those are for teachers. This is for students. The keyword is galau, IT. This is thousands of students. This is an extreme example, Galau IT Tasikmalaya. These actually pictures of students listening how to do hacking. Yeah, you are looking at 1,500 students in front of me. It's in the sport hall, yeah, because there is no room in the city that can hold this much people. Okay. And then the commercial ones, they actually create 1,500 engineers per year. The innovation, walk boleh. If you use keyword wajan bolik on the internet, you can see this. Why? We need to extend the range of the internet. So we use walk for cooking to reflect the signal. It can go up to 3 kilometers, okay? Wajan bolik is only, if you use wajan bolik, these pages made by Indonesians. So sometimes Indonesians quite smart. So now we create I have to translate in English, so I use neighborhood network. Actually in Indonesia, we use RT RW net. Basically, we share the internet access in the whole village, okay? Mind you, this is illegal. So, and the last one, we actually introducing people how to build their own cellular network. We call the technology we are using the open source BTS cellular. It costs around this much. It's about 10% of the cost of the actual cellular network, but it's operate same way. Okay, this is the BTS in Papua. It has been running for the last 3 years without license and illegal, but it works. This is the key actually. This is the converter from digital to analog. How many minutes more? 2 minutes, okay. Okay, so I'm proposing, this is the proposed policy for enabling solving the digital divide in Indonesia. Basically, there are two approaches. First, the narrowing the access divide, increasing the internet skills. To increase the internet skills, include the ICT in school curriculum, re-employ the ICT teachers, connect school to the internet. That's it. Mind you, this can be done self-finance actually. The school willing, the parents willing to pay for all of this. The problem is the government said no, so you just stop everything. Okay. Of course, schools can collaborate with community to run workshop and seminar, everything. That's what we are doing right now. And then for rural policy, okay, for narrowing, this is for access, narrowing the access. There are several options. Actually, what I'm proposing is public-private partnership. Actually, in more technical terms, is allowing us the community to build our own network, because right now it's illegal. Only operator can deploy the network. We, community, we Indonesian people have to subscribe to the operator. But from the technology point of view, the technology has become so simple, so cheap, so user-friendly. It's easy for us to deploy these things actually. But from legal point of view, this is illegal, so it's conflicting. Okay, and the funding actually can be self-financed. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Onno. So our final speaker for this session, Ibu Diastika Rahwidiati. Ibu Dia is Chief Technical Advisor at the UN Pulse Lab in Jakarta. She's got over 13 years of experience in international development assistance. So Ibu Dia, please.
27.5? No, from the growth revenue. Was it?
Thank you, Eli. Good afternoon, everyone. What I really like about this podium is that it hides your knees so you can't tell when you're really nervous. Today, my interest is not so much on the data science, but the use of big data and advanced analytics, especially for policymakers. So just to give a bit of context, Onno talked about the digital divide. What I'd also like to highlight is the data divide. Detailed data at household level, especially for policymaking and the development of interventions into some of the areas that you see here, hunger and poverty, education, gender equality, and child mortality, they take a long time to collect and sometimes a longer time to analyze using conventional data collection methods. Meanwhile, we're actually awash with enormous amounts of data generated every second, every time people interact with digital platforms. The chart here on your left shows how much data is generated every time you interact. As you can see, every minute there are 69.5 million translations requested of Google. About 9,000 emoji-filled tweets sent by Twitter users. Jakarta itself, I think several speakers have highlighted, that's probably the unofficial Twitter capital of the world, and for good reason. I think people stuck in traffic just sent out rants on Twitter complaining about things in their day. But I'd like to go back to Bayu Dardias this morning. He started off with a Star Wars analogy, so I'm going to continue the theme. In A New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi explained to Luke that the Force, I can't do an Obi-Wan Kenobi impression, I'm sorry. The Force is an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, and it binds the galaxy together. The way people talk about big data at times is very similar to this. It is a vast field of data created by all human interactions with digital platforms. It's pervasive, it's everywhere, and has the potential to provide unprecedented insights into human behavior. The question for Luke, and for us, is how do you harness it? How do you harness the Force? How do you use it to inform decisions that could improve human well-being? And this is the context in which Pulse Lab Jakarta operates. We are an initiative of the government of Indonesia and of the United Nations Global Pulse. And we're set up as an innovation lab to test out how new sources of data and advanced data analytics can inform decision-making and improve government responsiveness and empower communities. So the approach that I'm taking with this is informed by several driving questions. How do we make sense of new data sources? What factors shape the adoption and use of these platforms and tools that we developed? And actually, does anybody use this at all? The method in which we go about this is we take 3 recent prototypes that Pulse Lab have developed as case studies, and we do structured interviews with the users and also observation on how people use this. So the first case study is what we call the social listener, or the national dashboard. Basically, it combines different data sets to make sense of citizen feedback. Pak Yanuar was talking about Lapor earlier, and that's one of the data sets that we use. We then combine it with Twitter data as well. And what we do is aggregate the data, analyze it, and then categorize it based on thematic areas and also geographical distribution, so that people can look at what people are talking about in certain areas. We can break this down by province, by kabupaten, by data source, and this is the main layout. But also it can go into detailed topics on what are the keywords, some of the issues that people are raising. For instance, transportation. Most of the tweets are about stations, bus terminals, airports. And you can also look at the daily volume of some of these complaints in various areas, which makes it easy to aggregate. So you have your lapor data coming in or your tweets coming in complaining about certain things, but when you report upwards or when you try to see what does this all mean, what are some of the heated topics, you need some way of aggregating that that's not manual, because with tweets you're dealing with millions and millions of tweets. Lapor data is gaining traction, and if it's being used widely, and say 10% of the Indonesian population use it, you're dealing with large swathes of data at one time. And this is how we try to help make sense of it. So it was adopted by Kantor Staf Presiden and by Bappenas, but there are different stories to this. In KSP, it was integrated into Lapor's public website. The Lapor team at KSP said, this should be something that everyone can use, not just us. So they included a link in their dashboard. Everyone can use it. They can search for various topics. And it turns out that KSP uses to provide added insights to determine what kind of issues are in a particular area before they do monitoring visits there. The usage of the platform is not tracked, and because it's open, the KSP team, the Lapor team themselves don't know who's using this. We're just opening it to anyone. And so the interesting things is that although KSP, as I understand it, still provides technical support, the Lapor portfolio will move to Kemenpan itself. I'm not quite sure what this means for the dashboard. In Bappenas, they're more interested not in the Lapor data, but on the Twitter itself. Bappenas, as a planning agency, wants to know how people feel about certain development initiatives. But the usage of this dashboard is constrained by Bappenas's access to Twitter data. And that is not that they don't have the capacity to use it or the budget to do it. What's constraining them is actually the ability to procure and subscribe to Twitter data itself. The second case study is Haze Gazer. And this is actually a decision support system that tries to marry between satellite imagery on where hotspots are for haze. If you remember, Indonesia had a very serious bout of haze 2 years in a row. And combine it with citizen feedback and insights from the ground, from social media. And what we're trying to do is give real-time insights and amplify the voices of citizens in the places where there's fire and haze. And we also try to provide ground-level visual insights. So it takes a number of data sources, including base maps, the mobility information from Twitter. We, again, integrate some components building off the national dashboard of citizens' opinions from Twitter and Lapor. We also have an API from Instagram that allows people to feed in images, and if it's geotagged, then it will correlate to where the hotspots are. We take citizen journalism from YouTube and other channels to provide video-based insights, and recognizing that, as Pa Onno pointed out, not everybody is on social media, but the prevalence of radio is still high in a lot of areas. We also try to mine radio streams for increased conversations of people, again, calling in and complaining to radio stations, on conversations on haze. And that's using simple Google speech-to-text. It's already there. And for Indonesian, the quality is really good. You get 8 or 9 out of every 10 words. So this is what the main layout looks like. And you can see hotspots from the map. And you can then, users that can then pull out the analysis from the various insights in the boxes below. We've also got a panel for disaster management authorities who are used to using Sipongi, Indonesia's own sort of disaster monitoring framework. And it highlights the priority areas for monitoring haze. This again is analysis of the hotspots, and what is not coming out here is in the gray areas, that's actually when the hotspots peak. The orange ones are general tweets about haze. The green ones, though, are tweeting about haze-related health-related haze impacts. So if you can see, when hotspots increase, about 2-3 days afterwards, people start going batuk, sesak nafas, mata merah. All of those things are correlated with an increase of haze hotspots. You can also see images on the ground of people putting out on Instagram what haze looks like. And these are the radio-based insights where we're taking keywords, kabut asap, sesak nafas, sekolah tutup, related to haze impacts. What we're trying to do is give a good idea to decision makers of, okay, this is a hotspot over there. This is what people are tweeting and posting on Instagram. This is what the condition looks like on the ground. It can help you inform what kind of resources you need to deploy to that area. This was very, very recently installed in Kantor Staf Presiden as well. There are plans to integrate with other existing dashboards. But what we're finding is that when we completed this prototype earlier this year, the 2015 haze issue had slowly dissipated because the rain season had come. Nobody was worrying about haze anymore. Now that the rains have dried up and there are instances of haze, we're finding people's interest spark up again. We're also finding that as we present this to other stakeholders, there's interest in adopting this kind of monitor for other types of disasters. The third one I'd like to share is what we call Climate Cat. And this is the Climate Composite Anomaly Tracker. We originally developed this with the World Food Programme to track the impacts of El Nino on food security. And it's meant to be a composite of various data sets that already exist. And the added value that we're doing is putting several layers. So you have the baseline layer, a climate layer, an impact layer, so that you can combine different sets of information. For instance, we draw on Susena's data as a baseline for people who are poor and dependent on agriculture. And then you can overlay that with the Vegetation Health Index from FAO, rainfall anomaly to see drought, to look at which areas are the most vulnerable and potentially impacted by the drought. As you can see here, you then have a sort of combined layer for drought impact that helps the government prioritize which areas should be targeted for intervention. We also track commodity prices, but data on this has been patchy a bit. Jakarta has complete data sets for all its markets, but not so for the other areas. So this is still something in development. What was interesting about this is that we originally did this for WFP with their data, and because WFP had a very strong relationship with Kantor Staf Presiden already, they had an existing collaboration. When they showed this, Kantor Staf Presiden said, yes, actually, this is something that's quite useful. And the platform, what we've also done is provide options to integrate with other data sets that KSP already have. As Pak Yanwar mentioned, there's a One Data movement. So at the back end of the platform are options for the team to plug in various data sets. What we found also is that the layering and visualization of data encourages discussions around the policy implications of an issue instead of the debate of like, where did you get your data from? Datanya nggak valid, nggak bisa itu, harus data ini. So layering it helps take away the discussion and just go, there are 9 kabupatens that are at risk for food insecurity because of these factors. So some of the learnings that I found based on interviews and observations of this are, firstly, so the factors that support adoption of prototypes are that these projects are supported by people with strong personal drive. The strong visualization of data changes the debate to focus on policy issues instead of data sources. The flexibility of the tools is apparently liked because it allows users to use their own data for additional indicators. But there's also recognition of the potential usage of the platforms for the organization's long-term political agenda. Some of the impeding factors that we see are the timing of the projects. If there is no political urgency, they go, oh, this is really cute, it's nice. But if there is an urgency to do it and there is political will, the uptake we find is quite rapid. What we also see is that although we're quite proud of the work that we've done, we feel that success is fragile because right now it is highly dependent on individual champions like Pak Yanwar and his team, for instance, at KSP, to uptake this and make it work for their own institutions. I'm not quite sure how we spread this out to the rest, but the positive indicator is that it is an emerging change in the demand of analysis. What is evident, though, is that the needs of policymakers have far outpaced the ability of the Indonesian government's corporate processes to support this, especially in terms of procurement and planning and budgeting. But going back to my previous point, what I think we are seeing is an emerging change in the demand for analysis to inform policy processes. There are good, smart people in government that have the capacity to use this and want this. But there are still several skills gaps in order to make the results institutionalized. The good thing is the new Aparatur Sipil Negara law makes it slightly easier to recruit good people into government. But we need creative mavericks in the bureaucracy to make use of tools that already exist, the technologies that make analyzing large swathes of data available. We need more people to make use of it. Circling back to Star Wars and wrapping up, while as a lab we're very happy to build better lightsabers, I think what we need are more Jedis to harness the Force and use it for social good. Thank you.
Thank you, Diaz, for that really interesting insight into using data for policy development. Now we have about 25 minutes for questions, so I'll ask you to keep it short if you can. So I think we have a microphone somewhere. So do we have any questions? So we have one up here. Anyone? This lady here. Any more? And this gentleman at the back. Yeah.
You mentioned there was a problem of Bapanas taking up the Twitter analysis because they couldn't get the data, but Twitter sells that data to all comers, and you said money wasn't a problem. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Okay, so it was suggested that there was a problem in the social media analysis in respect of Twitter, lack of take-up from Bapanas because they couldn't get the data. But Twitter sells the data to all comers, and you did say that the money wasn't a problem. Can you expand on what the issue is there?
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I'm Fiona Suwana from QT. I would like to ask Diastika. Just wondering about the data itself. Is it free for public? Is it open for public, the data that you use for your research? And secondly, when we talk about big data, it's not only about the validity anymore, but we also talk about the bias, because actually algorithm is also biased. So is there any challenge regarding about bias from your research? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And one more.
Thank you. My name's Terry Hull from ANU. I'd like to ask about big data, and actually could direct my question to any of the three speakers. The eKTP, which is being rolled out, is a huge activity, and it includes a lot of information, And there are some people talking about putting ever more information on health and other things embedded in the eKTP. I have not met anyone yet who had an eKTP where the information that was on it was fully correct. Either the address is wrong, or the name was spelled wrong, or the date of birth, and the list goes on and on. What I'm wondering about is when big projects are rolled out like this, what are the mechanisms for correcting errors? Because what we see is eKTP is very difficult to correct. It could take only a minute to correct if you had the right equipment, but now some people are waiting for months for correcting incorrect data.
Okay, thank you. So we have two questions there for Diaz about tweets and one about the availability of data, and then one for all three panelists on eKTP. Diaz, do you want to speak first?
So the problem isn't with budget or competency, really. The problem is Indonesia's procurement law. So as I understand it, and I'm not an expert on this, it was just by numerous conversations with my good counterparts at Bapanas and them trying to explain why they couldn't apply this. The problem is that to procure things of a certain value, you need to put it out to market, and it's not easy to do a direct appointment. Twitter data is available through GNIP, it's subunit. So I think also the procurement law requests that you need to have a company that's based in Indonesia. Again, this is not possible with Twitter data. Another issue is that, as I understand it, and please, Pak Yan, if I'm wrong, correct me, you need to also be able to pay this in rupiah. And so the subscription is not in rupiah. So it is nothing technical. It is, as I understand it, it is purely administrative. If there's anybody else that has a better grasp of Indonesia's procurement law, I think please feel free to correct me. On the second question of big data, is it available for public? Yes and no. So to an extent, you can do analytics with Twitter, but you don't get the level of depth that you need to create a vast taxonomy, for instance. You can do some bits of research, but not something in depth, and probably not something spanning months. So it's the level of depth that you need to do. So if it's just a quick and simple, I want to know who are the influencers on this or that, you could probably do that. Or the number of tweets mentioning Indo Update 16, that's very easy to do. But if you want to do something on sentiment, something that requires a longitudinal period, then you'd need to subscribe to the data. For Instagram's API, though, I think is open. So with that, you can plug it in and do an analysis. On big data bias, yes. As several speakers have pointed out, with big data, you do get the whole population, and you don't get a sample bias, but you get a population bias where the entire population of Twitterati in Indonesia is not the same as the entire population of Indonesia. It is very skewed towards people living in Jakarta and urban areas and people owning smartphones. So in order to make sense of the insights, you need to take into account what that is for. And that requires some reflections as well on the part of policymakers. What do you use these insights for? What kind of decisions can you base on them, knowing that you have this bias in the data?
Onno, would you like to?
I don't even know where to start with that one. But perhaps it's the iktp error. I'm not quite sure that's so much as the data as it is the supporting infrastructure. The discussions that our team have had with several people in Papua and elsewhere is that, and even in East Java, is that when equipment is broken, they actually need to call somebody in to fix it from wherever the technical expertise is. In East Java, they need to call it from Surabaya. In Papua, it's often they need to call from elsewhere. Also, based on the conversations, what has been expressed is that in order to correct an error, you can't do it on site. You need to get officials of Depdagri to correct that error. So I think it's something to do with the design of the system itself and not so much the data.
Onno or Emma, would you like to comment on the last question at all?
Oh. Well, I am experiencing the error actually. Okay, I need the witness here. This is my iktp. Okay, check what's wrong with this KTP. I'm having fun. Okay. You cannot see the weird things in my iktp?
I don't know that much about you, but...
Okay. Okay. Check my signature.
Oh.
Oh,
okay.
it's fun.
It's a line. I just
A
thought that was
line.
your signature, but that's...
A line. So what happened is, during the registration of iktp, I need to sign. But at that time, my arm was broken because I was riding a bicycle and I was struck by bajai, so it's broke. And then so I cannot sign. This is my right arm, so I cannot sign. So the operator said to me, okay, just make a line. So I make a line. And then I get the iktp. And then I try to fix it. No, it's impossible. It cannot fix. It has been like more than 6 months actually, so it's fun. So this is good. I mean, when I go to the bank, so I can sign by make a line. No.
Okay, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but we do have time for a couple more questions if anyone would like to ask. One right up at the back there, and one here. Okay.
Yeah, my name is Rudy Purbo from ANU. Just question about sharing data in Indonesia among the government ministries. Because I was involved in a big project in the past. So difficult to collect data to connect ABS for BPS with Department of Industry and Trade, for instance, BPT, RISTEC, for instance. And what's the current situation about, given that there was a spirit about open source and sharing data as well? And do they still share data among the ministries, departments? That's number one. And also the second question is, we see now that the World Bank, ADB, already moving to open data as well, so sharing public information easily and freely also to people. So is Indonesia thinking about doing the same thing as well? For instance, BPS, starting with BPS, for instance, or other ministries, maybe education, for instance. Yeah, thank you. Just those two questions.
Okay. And one more at the back.
Yes, hi. Can you comment on how Indonesians actually use the internet, specifically if it's used for seeking education services, health advice, and how we can encourage the more productive use of the internet?
Okay, thank you.
How we can encourage more productive use of the internet?
Oh.
Papa Onno, would you like to start in response to those questions?
I'm thinking.
Thinking.
Sometimes I have to think. Sometimes. Most of the time I cannot think.
I think as on open data, as seen by Pa Yanuar's presentation, there is a sort of a semangat baru, a new enthusiasm to link up data and open it up for public consumption. I think there's been a lot of increase of governments opening up their data and posting it, but I think there is not really yet a uniform understanding of what constitutes open data. Some people, some institutions think that just posting up a PDF that constitutes open data. But then you see civil society responding by going, all right, if that's what you think is open data and you're opening it up, what we're going to do is just convert the PDFs into CSVs or something else that is machine readable, processable. So I think we're looking at a really good trend of governments recognizing the importance of having one data, the political willingness, and there's this, the push and imperative of sharing data. It's going to be an exciting landscape for the next couple of years if this momentum continues.
I comment a little bit on the product. Is it productive use of the internet? Okay. When someone asking question like this to me, normally the example is the objective is very simple. Most of the students I talk to, normally I encourage them to shift from consumer into producer. As simple as you from read, if we are in forum, from reading things to commenting or posting something. So that's the simple one. From read to write, as simple as that, if it is in written form. But then we can move towards different things. For example, most of the students, the young people, actually looking for getting money, something additional money from the internet. Then they start playing with Facebook and put ads on what they have and sell things on media, social media. So it can be something like that. And that's actually encouraged the young people to use the internet more productively like that. So as simple as that. Is that answering the questions? Yeah, I know.
Emma, would you like to comment on either of those questions?
Yeah. I think we have to try and change our ideas about what constitutes a productive use of the internet. Some of the reports that I showed before, the Puskakom report out of UI, they asked people whether they use the internet to, I don't really know who I'm looking at here, sorry. Who asked the question? Whether people use the internet to engage in social media and chat or to get information. Now, anyone who's got a primary school-aged child and observes how they use the internet will know that those distinctions are questionable because people are getting a lot of information by engaging with social media and chatting. So I think if we're to do any kind of digital inclusion measurement, we really need to bring people like designers in to rethink how surveys can be designed to cater best to the way that people are, the new ways in which people are engaging the internet to get information or to be productive. Yeah.
Thank you, Emma. So unless we have any more burning questions at all, one more here. Any others? And one here. So we have like 5 more minutes.
Okay, my name is Budi Raharjo from Indonesia. I'm not going to ask questions, but I'm going to answer some of the questions quickly. First, there's going to be a government standard. They call it government service bus to talk among government entities and connecting the data, open data. There's going to be standard coming out from Minister of Communication about the format of data, so that will answer the question. And in terms of the eKTP, the current version is going to be scrapped. Yeah, and it's going to be a big issue because it's going to go into a corruption KPK. There's going to be a new initiative probably in 2017 because I'm going to design it in 2017. So that's it.
Okay, I think that was an answer rather than a question.
My name is Ivan from ANU. Pak Onno, thank you for your work on, educating young people with the internet and computer. My question is that, we have so many villages, many islands in Indonesia. Do you have any plan how to speed this so that many young people, they are well informed, skillful with internet and technology? Thank you.
Okay, quick answer.
Take your time.
What I have in mind is very simple. I try to influence the curriculum, especially the vocational schools, because we can replicate very rapidly through education. Actually, I am the one who designed the curriculum for, are you familiar with TKJ in SMK? No, okay. In vocational schools in Indonesia, we have several, department or major. So, for example, they have business, economics, they have several major in vocational schools. One of the major is the networking. So yes, I actually the one who designed the curriculum for the networking in the SMK. The problem is the government, I mean Diknas, is not providing funding or program for us to teach the teachers. So that's my problem. And then also not providing us, they only set the curriculum, no teacher training, no empowerment, no books, textbooks for them. So I have to do it on my own budget for these things. Yeah, it's fun.
Thank you. So thank you everybody very much. I have a quick announcement before we thank the speakers, which is that as the weather has cleared up, we will now have afternoon tea partially outside. It'll be available on the grass just outside the theatre and in the Coombs Extension foyer at the back of the theatre. So please will you join me in thanking our three speakers for this stimulating discussion.